What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel. We are here to rank some more Survivor seasons. We are chugging our way along, and this week we have numbers 25 through 16. So we're getting there. This is our penultimate episode of the series. So if you've been enjoying, please hit the like button, subscribe, and do all the fun things on YouTube. We really appreciate it. And so without further ado, what do you feel about this pack of 10 seasons, Joel?
I'm pretty excited. We have a wide variety of seasons from new school to even like some I would say not new school, but like more recent seasons in general, which is always fun, and a few old school seasons, which is super fun. So I'm excited to go all around these.
Absolutely. We have a great bunch of seasons, a lot of differing opinions, a lot of hot takes in this mix. And so to start out with a pretty hot take from my end, at least, is uh, number 25, Survivor, Edge of Extinction. Man, I actually really liked this season. I had it up all the way at number 15 while you had it at number 35. So it split it and put it in the middle at 25. So we both have pretty differing takes. There's a full 20 seasons difference between us for the ranking of Edge of Extinction. But I'll give Edge of Extinction my defense real quick. I think the season has just a fantastic pre-merge. A lot of the characters are just fun to root for. Watching the Blue Tribe, I forgot what they're called, watching them fail with David and Wentworth on the season is fun. I think there's just a lot of great moments also at the merge, with the Julia boot with the insane I'm jumping ship tribal council, as well as there's just several other moves. Devin's coming back into the game and being a top tier character that we have already talked about in the past about wanting him to return. And then other than that, like I am just the finale is incredibly exciting, although the outcome is not what's desired. I think the whole ride, like episode to episode, is like one of the funnest seasons to watch because you don't really ever know what's going to happen, and there's just like really cool blindsides after another, and then ultimately it doesn't matter with Chris winning. I think his win is obviously tainted by the nature of the game, but as from an entertainment perspective, I feel like that's one of the reasons I have it pretty high. Some of the game moves are great, although they don't matter at the end. I think production shouldn't have given Chris an idol when he got back into the game. He already had the advantage of being in the game after being voted out. So I think that's an advantage in of itself, and he didn't need that, as well as the fire making challenge being a built-in kind of way to make it to the end. And so even though I think he would have won anyway without a fire making challenge because I think they would have just voted out Devons and then he would have been in the final three and still won. But it was still a good move by him to take Devons out and fire making himself. Uh, and then yeah, I have this kind of similar to like Survivor 43 and the aspect of like a lot of people just like dislike the season just because of what happens in the end. Like no one likes that Gabler won. I personally enjoy it, but a lot of Survivor fans don't, and so I think that might be a reason why Edge of Extinction isn't as well liked. But I think it's also getting a lot of buzz lately as well as like an underrated season. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely have differing opinions, but I do agree with a lot of what you said. I think a lot of the season is fun. My big thing is like the season, like you could really just cut out like 90% of the season and you would still like 90% of the season does not matter because all you have to do is watch Edge of Extinction and the finale and you would know exactly what's happening. You'd understand the winner, all this stuff, which means for like so much of the season, you're just watching nothing happen, essentially. I do think a lot of it is fun. It is cool to watch Devon's like he's a great character. He needs to return so desperately. All these things. And I even do like Chris as a winner. For a season like this, I mean, the season is Edge of Extinction. He plays into the season. I think if you look at like what he does, like he beats Joe Anglem, one of the best challenge competitors, one on one basically in a challenge. Goes pulls off the negative reverse with Warren, um, which I think is a great move. Actually, I think is a brilliant move. Not so much for Lauren, but then final five idols, fire making. He did all he could. and I appreciate that, and it's probably what I would have tried to do and hoped I would do. But at the end of the day, it sucks to see that this season could have been like a Victoria win, a Lauren win, all these other people that I think had potential to game that was just ruined from Edge of Extinction. Where if this wasn't Edge of Extinction, where I just don't like battlebacks in general, especially if they play this big of a season, like this big of a part of the season. And that's just where I'm from. I actually like Chris. I would have personally voted for Gavin because I am someone who believes that if you get voted out, that is the worst thing you can do in the game. That means you did something wrong. And if it was any other season, Chris is gone, and you never would have thought of Chris again. And I think he's a good player. He showed that. But overall, I just can't get over the fact that you can watch this season and you realize I just spent so many hours of my life and it didn't mean anything.
Yeah, I can see why that's definitely a fair take, and I understand the perspective of most people. Um, and yeah, like Lauren got absolutely gypped by Chris by tricking her into playing the idol for him at the final five. But I think the fatal flaw was him living with the jury for most of his game. Like he got to actually talk with them all and develop relationships with them. And if that wasn't the case, I feel like if they all just like had to leave after the Edge of Extinction, or at least like after the merge, like the ones that didn't make it back in, they all had to just leave. Like that could have helped him a lot. But we would have missed out on some moments like Rick Ream being like the best like first boot in the history of Survivor. Um,
Mhm.
not only it's because she was on our screen for more than the first episode and that we got to see like how entertaining she was. And I think she still would be talked about as a great first boot within that first episode. But the fact that we got like the whole season of like watching them, and I also get why they did it for Winners at War, although I'm not the biggest fan. I'm pretty much a Survivor purist. I just I have a soft spot for this season. This is one of the first ones watched live in my Survivor career. And so I just had like a soft spot for it, as well as I thought it was just fun to watch like week to week and just not really knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's super fair. And I don't really have much else to say about the season myself. The one thing I do want to say is I want so desperately a Lauren return. I think she
Yes.
has so much potential in the game. I think I do think there's a world where her or Victoria would win, and I do think that. And I think both of them are great players, and I would love. There's a lot of returning potential in this season, which I would love to see back. So
Yes,
yeah,
as a Baylor Bear myself, like Lauren needs to come back.
is
And
she
sh
from Baylor?
Yeah, she was a soccer player at
I
Baylor.
had no idea.
Yeah,
That's actually so cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's our the Baylor Survivor legacy right there. And so that's why she needs to come back.
Yes. All right. Well, moving on to what is it, 24?
24.
There we go. We have one of the earliest seasons of Survivor, Survivor Amazon. Obviously this season is remembered mostly about Rob Cesternino. He obviously runs the biggest Survivor podcast. He is a massive legend of the game, and he pretty much to me carries the season in a lot of ways where he really kind of was the first to develop this like flip-floppy style of game, and he does it to near perfection. And I do think there's a world where he wins, where production back then, obviously the final challenge is him like standing on like this stool thing, and if they actually like measured it out to everyone's feet, I think he would have had a better shot. But I also love that Jenna won. I think it's a cute little win, especially knowing what happens later in All Stars. I think Heidi's a great character. I think the fact that their shelter burnt down is hilarious. I personally love this season, and it evolves the game so much more so than any other season beforehand. And yeah, I would definitely love to see like some of these players come back low key to play the modern game.
Yeah, absolutely. We almost had this season in the exact same spot. I had it at 24 and you had it at 23. So I
Mhm.
think we have a pretty similar opinion about like I guess where Amazon kind of fits in with the rest of the seasons. Just because I think like you said, Rob Cesternino is a great character. I think um how so much she's done for the Survivor community like really helps like the way people view him watching this season, and like nowadays, like they're like, dude, this guy's awesome. He's a great character. I will say this season, like in the guys tribe jokes like didn't really age well. There's some definite sexism there, but for the time I could see why it was pretty funny to watch. Like obviously it's not okay now. Um, but I think with that aside, we have some just pretty incredible moments. Rob really kind of changed the game as we know it because he started, flipping tribes. And I think that's really paved the way for how good Pearl Islands was the next season.
Yeah.
Because everyone loves Pearl Islands, including myself, and that's why, spoiler alert, we're not talking about that one tonight. We're talking about it next week. So we'll see that one pretty high up there. But I think he really helped kind of develop the strategic game. And so I like this season a lot. Like him in it. We have Jenna and Heidi getting naked for chocolate and peanut butter. That's a classic Survivor moment. Um, and then yeah, I don't know. That's kind of all I have to say. I like it. I'd be happy to watch it again. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, definitely love this season. I think my personal favorite part, I mean, I think we both agree that Rob is the best character, best player of the season. We'll talk about it more when Pearl Islands, but he really did like set up Pearl Islands to be as good as it was. And I think that's super interesting. My favorite moment of the whole season is when the camp burns down because it's just like it was literally set up throughout the entire season that all he does is just chop wood and get wood, and Rob is just like his special helper. And then they come back, and the whole thing's just burnt to the ground, which you never really get to see on Survivor much anymore. Of
right.
like that, and it is so funny to see everyone's reaction to it. And yeah, it's definitely one of the most humorous moments of Survivor to me.
Yeah, I think it's great. Matthew like being obsessed with fire and like
Yeah.
Rob saying he's gonna kill all of us. Just a funny moment as well. So yeah, I love Amazon as well, and kind of in very stark contrast to season 6 of Survivor. Next up at number 23, we have Survivor 44, unnamed season, but we got a new era. Season with the iconic trio of Jam Jam, Carolyn, and Carson kind of taking over the entire game at the merge and cruising to a Jam Jam win. And I think he is um, either him or D is still the best winner that we've had so far in the new era. I
Yeah.
think his game was just incredible. He took out anyone who was in direct opposition to him at all, like anyone who uh, thought that was trying to gun for him. He did have one like rusty moment at the merge episode with him versus Josh, and he almost got taken out there. But besides that, he really kind of demonstrated a very powerful win. And
Mm.
the three of them kind of brought back like how important alliance is in Survivor, which is something that's kind of been lost. I would say probably since like Cambodia when they were talking about doing all the voting blocks and stuff. We haven't really had that again since then. And then season 44 comes in, and then they have the Tika 3 that kind of just dominates, and it shows how important alliance can still be even in modern Survivor. We even saw that with Survivor 45 with the Reba 4 because they absolutely dominated the game too. And so if people can figure out what to do against an alliance, it's kind of almost backtracking, I guess, in strategy, but
Mhm.
also moving the game forward um, in the ways where you can choose either strategy, and we'll get to see more combinations of how people will try to overcome an opposing alliance, even though maybe the other players won't be in alliance themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this one was definitely one where we had a huge difference, I believe. I ranked this very high. And I think I ranked it too high, but I do have my reasonings. One, I truly do believe that um, Jam Jam, Carolyn, Carson, three of the best characters to be in the new era in Survivor in general. Carson, I believe, has played a top five game of the new era easily. I would say he's probably number four to me. You have Jam Jam, or yeah, you have Carolyn, someone super underrated. Um, so an amazing character, probably the best character of the new era. An amazing story. I think all three of them did like three different games so like uniquely. One, Carson played the traditional like get to the end, biggest threat, led the alliance strategically, managed his threat level perfectly, had an idol played for him, all this stuff, won immunity, broke the game by practicing puzzles, which thank you, Carson, for making Survivor make new puzzles. Then you have Carolyn, where I think in the new era, it is so easy and a genuine strategy to act like a crazy character. But in reality, you're strategic. Like you saw with Marianne, you saw with Gabler, you saw with two winners before that. And Carolyn's like even wackier than both of them. And she was arguably more strategic than both of them. And then you have Jam Jam, who easily played one of the best social games in the history of Survivor. I would say he's probably like two or three. And it is ridiculous that no one like could take him out when he was such a clear threat. I think the only person that could have beat him is Carson, and I think it's close. And like you said, it's like a revamp of like they really started this trend of bringing back alliances that if you get a strong alliance in the new era, it runs the game. And I actually have a theory, and this is my theory, that it actually is the reason like when Bruce got put on the season 45, that's the reason he gunned for Kaleb because he knew the middling position between two tribes of the numbers like will be the swing, and that's why I think he guns for him. But either way, I mean, it's a great season out, but with those three, but outside of those three, like you don't really know anyone. Most of the characters are kind of dull. The only ones that are like, I don't know, Matt and Franny, like they're cool, and it's cool to see a showman's work like that. But at the end of the day, like they got out relatively early, and this was just the Tika 3 show. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I had this at 30, you had it at 16, and I
Mhm.
know you said you would probably put it lower now, but I had it so low. I just it's a steamroll pretty much most of the game. And I think it's still a problem with like all of the different twists and stuff that they have. Like the bird cages were cool. But it still took up too much screen time. Like between all the advantages and idols and twists and the Tika 3, we really didn't get to know anyone else. And that really hurt the season a lot. I think without the Tika 3, the season would be like dog water, like tier, like a Survivor. Like no one would
Probably.
really want to watch it. Like if you replace those three characters with like three other like normal, like lackluster people, like I think we would be looking on a pretty boring season on our hands and we wouldn't really enjoy it very much. And I know you agree with that take as well. So I don't know. I just, as far as the new era seasons go, this one is probably second to lowest, like with 41 still being at the bottom
Mhm.
because the post merger that season is so bad. It's just unbearable. But 44, there's obviously some good merits, with I like the Tika 3 a lot. If I didn't like them, it'd be bad. I do like Danny a lot. He didn't get
I,
enough credit for his season. He was a fun character, but we didn't really get him for long enough to like probably see him as a returnee or anything. So, yeah, I like Carson a lot. He's probably my favorite character of the season. I'm glad that production finally changed the puzzles. Starting with 45, we have some new puzzles, which is really nice. So you
mhm.
can't really game bot your way, to the end. But, in a way that was, super smart in taking advantage of all the resources he had. And so like I wouldn't ever be mad at Carson for that. I'm mad at production for how that went out, for not changing the puzzle sooner. But yeah, I am also mad at the specialists for not putting him on the ballot. What they're doing for their new era, I guess or their second chance ballot that they were doing just for fun. They didn't even put Carson on there, like as to get voted for, which I think is a crime against humanity. So
It is. No,
I
yeah.
yeah, I like the season a lot. But it's still not great for me. So that's number 23. And next up, we have another relatively controversial season, number 22, Survivor Cook Islands. I think there's an innate error in this season of having it be divided by race, which is just a really crazy thing that happened in Survivor and how they didn't get canceled for that. But it was 2000 2005 or something like that, 2006 when that came out. And so they, I don't know, it's kind of wild, but
Yeah.
season ended up working out, and that wasn't a main proponent of the season because they did swap within like 2 episodes or something. And
Hmm.
so we got to actually see some other people's games. We have the what is it? The four from the one tribe. I forgot what
Oh shoot. Oh,
yeah,
here.
Yule
Yeah.
and Ozzy, and then Becky and Sundra that just kind of take over the game.
Yeah.
I two,
They're
I two.
definitely.
There it
Yeah,
is.
I too.
Yeah.
I too
Um,
more.
and then we have kind of the birthplace of a lot of like popular characters like Pinner and Candace and Parvati, of course, all coming from this season. And Ozzy, he's a great character that comes back. He's never gonna win the game, but even though they've made seasons around him, such as Survivor South Pacific, that was kind of built for him to win.
Yeah, it's like he had a shot.
Yeah. But I still enjoy the season as a whole. I really at the time when I watched it, I was like rooting for Ozzy to beat Yule. But looking back at this season, I'm like, that was such a casual take. Like Yule's such a better player.
Yes.
And he's just played the game incredibly. Um, maintained possession of an idol like the whole time because he had the super idol because they didn't fix it yet. So I think I really like the season. There's a lot of great moments. There's the bottle twist, which is pretty controversial as well, which is kind of bad.
Yeah,
Um,
it's bad.
little
It's not
little
good.
little production interference possibly. Still don't know to this day. But what do you think about Cook Islands?
I definitely like it. I think it's like a weird. It's almost kind of like 44 in the sense that like the best characters are like some of the best ever, and if you're not them, then like it's like pretty bad. I think the strategy is very good. My personal favorite moment in the entire season is Yule threatening Penner because obviously Yule has put himself in this like godfather position, but he's just the sweetest, nicest guy ever. And so he's like really uncomfortable doing it, but he knows it's like the correct move. And flipping Penner is such a great move. It is perfect. I love Yule as a player. I think Penner is one of my favorite characters ever. And I think this was kind of the first season we got to see like outside of like Panama, this was like the first season where we got to see another challenge beast that like rivaled Terry. And Ozzy is obviously known as probably the best challenge competitor ever. And you get to see him at his prime here. Like he is blowing people out of the water every single challenge. Yule is pretty much the only one that even comes close. And the only like I guess downside to me about this season is like Yule's like guaranteed final three because it's the first final three, and his idol goes to the final three. So um Ozzy never really had his chance, but I do believe Ozzy does take Yule to the end because this is an Ozzy that believes in honor and beating the best. And just seeing Yule and Ozzy battle it out at Final Tribal is like kind of surreal. Like that's one of the best Final Tribal matchups ever. And it's cool to see Yule win the game because of a deal he made during like a deal he made. Showing his strategic prowess, showing that his understanding of the jury. And Ozzy become gets super close to winning. And I think he's a satisfying underdog. And yeah, I really do love this season. There's a lot of boring parts, and obviously the race thing is like very icky. But also it's like weirdly this thing where like they got so many people of diversity on the cast, which was just not common at this point.
Right.
And so it's a double-edged sword. And I do think that this produced one of the best players in the game in Yule.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. I don't have a whole lot to say except the Becky and Sundra fire making challenge, which is one of the most hilarious moments in Survivor history where they can't make fire even with matches for the
Yeah,
longest time. They're sitting there for like 3 hours and Jeff's just like looking at them with the most angry face that I've ever seen on him.
yeah. He has some angry faces, but that was definitely one of them.
Yeah,
It's like
it just
how do you not
hilarious
know?
moment. Like, how did you get on the show and you can't even make fire? Like
Yeah,
that's with matches.
the worst part is matches. But
Yeah.
next season is one that I know you've been waiting for. One of the most controversial seasons with a crazy cast and a crazy name and a crazy outcome. We have Survivor Game Changers. So, what do you got to say about this?
All right. So first off, this is the first season of
You've been waiting.
Survivor I have ever seen, and I instantly got hooked. I didn't know who any of these people were. It didn't matter to me. I was learning about the game, and the first episode of Survivor I ever watched was the premiere with Tony running around the island, like trying to find an idol, and I was kind of just hooked immediately. Sandra going with her phrase, "The queen stays queen, adios." I think that's just it was hilarious to me when I watched it the first time. I watched it relatively like soon, quickly after it came out. I think it was um like beginning of 2018, maybe late 2017 or something like that. It had already been out, but I watched it like on Hulu, and so I just it was like the re most recent season on there. I was like, all right, I gotta watch this. And it's just sat through the whole thing. Um, Obviously, I understand the flaws. The game changers are not game changers whatsoever. Like sure, there's some great ones with Sandra, JT, Tony, Ozzy's on the season as well. We're talking about a lot of seasons with Ozzy back to back, which is really funny.
Yeah, well, a lot of
And
Ozzy.
then I'm struggling to think of some other seasons that like or other players on the season that were like great to break Malcolm, but the boot order is abysmal. Uh, I guess the pre-merge is also just incredible. Like it reminds me of like kind of a Winners at War pre-merge where it's like the episodes are just really great and the boots are really entertaining. But then you get to the merge and you're like, who am I left with? Haley Ford, you know, uh,
Brutal.
you know, that's all I have to say. Sarah pulling out the win. This is actually a really good win. Like Sarah's a top tier winner in this.
Mhm.
She bamboozled Sierra Don Thomas into giving her um her legacy advantage, and that punches her ticket. One of the most horrific moments in Survivor is Cerie's boot, where the advantage get in, where everyone had something that they could play except for Cerie, and so by default she had to get voted out, even though that was not the plan at all. She didn't get any votes. So very just so much disrespect for Cerie. She
It's
still should
bad.
have won. It's pretty bad. So yes, I'm quick to admit its faults, but it just has a very special place in my heart as a Survivor fan. As the first season I watched, I like a lot of the moments, like the Malcolm tribal with the two tribes going together. Um, that's a great Survivor moment to me. Um, I think Sandra's like her first time ever getting voted out. It's also a great moment, and she got swap screwed too. Like she was kind of in a great position in the game, and then she got screwed when she swapped onto the other tribe who didn't really spend a lot of time with her. So they're like, "Oh, Sandra, two-time winner, she's gone," and didn't really
Yeah.
give her a chance. So I don't know. I like Game Changers. Uh, I don't have much else to say about it. There's some great moments, but
Mhm.
I definitely understand why people don't like the season.
Yeah, I mean, most of the biggest complaints just come from the cast. I truly believe what the intention was going to be like this, like legends versus knots, or like second something along those lines. Where you do, if you do cut it in half, there are a bunch of players that like were like okay, like definitely needed another shot, maybe to prove it, and then absolute legends of the game that didn't like just wanted another chance at it. I do think Sarah is one of my personal favorite winning games. Especially hearing about what happens outside of it, because there is a bit of ickiness on this season, obviously, with Voner, and that was not great. It was surreal to watch in the moment. But I think outside of that, production wanted to make the winners team more likable, a good winner. It's kind of what happened with Tommy. Tommy was never shown in a negative way. Therefore, the winner is going to be good. And I think Sarah played this extremely villainous cutthroat game. I think what she did to Sierra Don Thomas is incredible. Great move. Super innovative. And it saved her at Vantage Geddon, where she probably goes if it's her against Suri. And obviously, like she made this great alliance. She basically forced Torzan to take her to the final three. She beat Brad Culpepper, who was just in a I don't know potato sack at Final Tribal, but he played a good game too. He played this like extremely dominant game on the offset, but like Sarah played the game that could beat that, and I give her a lot of credit for that, especially at a time where the whole idea of women versus men, who gets more credit. Sarah got the credit, and she rightfully deserved it. I wish it became more of a trend later, but I definitely think this is a better season than what people think of. Obviously, the boot order is atrocious. It's terrible. I hate our advantage getting, but I can't help but the fact that a lot of the season is very good if you can look past that.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fun, I think. There's obviously so many negative moments, but I would just say there's a lot of fun. I think my favorite moment is like Sandra stealing the sugar. Like that's just great and no
Oh
one
yeah,
blames her. Like that's probably my favorite moment. I really like just like the random like funny moments, that's within a season. And like how do we live in a world with like Sandra, Sari, Malcolm, JT, all these people on the same season with Brad, Culpepper, which and then like Debbie,
I
Varner,
like
Ty, like that's just those two worlds just did not collide very well. So yeah, the casting is just terrible. In retrospect, I probably just have a lot of soft spotness for this season,
mhm.
but yeah, it's it's 18, it's middle of the pack. I wouldn't really put it much higher than what it is. I would never put it higher than what it is. So
Yeah, still,
moving
but
on.
let's do
Sorry.
it.
Yeah, moving on. We got number 20, Survivor South Pacific.
Let me cook. I'm ready for this. Okay. I don't remember where I put it on the season, but I feel like I should put it higher than whatever I put it at because I actually love this season. Mostly because you gotta like keep in context here. At this point of Survivor, they are actively trying to get these people a win, returning players a win. They are trying to get Rob a win. And this season, they're trying to get Ozzy a win. Ozzy and Coach. They put Coach on there because they didn't expect him to play as good as a game he did. He played an incredible game. He was basically a cult leader, which is like the most like
It's a little
it was
icky,
crazy.
but somehow he makes it work and almost wins, but he doesn't own his game, and so that really cost him at the end.
Yeah, it's not great, but he does it, and it honestly kind of makes sense for Coach to do that. Like, if Coach was winning game, is because people buy into what he's saying, except for the fact they don't buy into him at Final Tribal, which is where Sophie comes in. To me, I love Sophie as a winner. I wish she was shown more. She's blunt, she's sassy. I love it. Great character. The only person that I think could have really out talked Coach is Sophie. And her final tribal pretty much wins her the game, but I think her game's just as good. I do think Coach does play better. Obviously, what he did to Cochran at the merge is like genuinely one of the best uses of manipulation in social game I've ever seen, and I did not expect that from Coach. And the fact that he gets Cochran to flip and basically runs the game from there, incredible. But to me, the season comes down to Ozzy and his story. That this was Ozzy's season. He broke the game. He broke Redemption Island because he was just so good. And all he had to do was win one puzzle and he wins the game. He could have beaten any of them. And he didn't do it. And to me, it is just the perfect ending to Ozzy. The one thing I can say about Game Changers I dislike is the fact Ozzy is there. Because I don't even think about him on Game Changers. I just believe he was on the his 3 seasons and it ended with South Pacific with him. All he had to do was win a challenge. And he couldn't do it. And the person who beat him, Sophie, became the Dragon Slayer. And I think it's perfect. And I love it. Obviously, there's a lot of down. It's very icky with the religious stuff. But if you can look to the story of Ozzy, Sophie, and Benjamin, Coach, then this season is very good.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with you. I think the Redemption Island twist, like in the fact of its brokenness, like ruins its luster when you have Ozzy on a season because he can take that to an advantage. Astos tried to vote him out as an advantage so that when he gets back in the game, they can get the numbers back again. So he was a team player. He played to the best of his ability. He was very close to taking the win. He was a puzzle away. But that doesn't really undermine Sophie's game at all. Like coming back at Winners at War, we had a lot of questions like, how's Sophie gonna play in this game? Is she gonna be as good as she was in the first one? Was she just lucky that she won the game in the first place? You know, and we saw like she's just a gamer and that was her strategy, her social game, and she really won the game through that, while Coach did not. And she also won the puzzle that took out Ozzy, so she did everything right that she needed to. She got to the right position to take the win. There's a lot of hilarious moments on the season. Um, just back with like Redemption Island with Coach, and like taunting the people that he voted out. Like those are some funny moments. But yeah, I like South Pacific a lot.
Yeah, I do too. Definitely never forget about how Sophie got to watch Jack and Jill as Caleb dies in the background. And Sophie's like the only one not laughing. It is a perfect representation of who she is, and I love it. And yeah, I'm very satisfied by this season. Obviously, I think they bring the wrong people back, especially like Brandon Hans. But like on the season, it's like incredible. He gives up immunity, all this stuff. It's like almost like biblical. Like it was this crazy season where there's a lot of duds, undoubtedly, but like the people that matter make it to the end. And like the final four is like this crazy final. It's like what production would have wanted, like Coach, Ozzy, and then two players that were very good in their own right. Albert obviously is like the third command, but like Sophie, I mean, she wins like three immunities or something, right? Like something
Yeah, yeah, great number of
like
immunities.
that's pretty like
Yeah,
that's very good. Like
yeah.
that's more than Jonathan had in season 42, which we'll get to. And yeah, I have a soft spot for this season, especially because I'm such a Sophie fan. So yeah, that's what I gotta say.
So next up, we have number 19, Survivor 42, like we just mentioned a second ago. Another
Oh
new
yeah.
era season. We actually give the new era seasons kind of some love. Like I'm surprised that they're in the top half, all of them but 41, obviously. Um, and
Brutal.
I like 42 as well. They really improved upon everything that went wrong in 41. Although the same glaring errors exist, like such as the hourglass, do or die, all these terrible twists that exist in the new era game, they minimize them, and they also really improve the editing overall in the season, which I think that correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they did a full re-edit of the season once they realized like how bad 41 was received from the fans. They're like, oh, we need to make some changes. And so they went back to the drawing board and re-edited the season,
Yeah.
which also provided with just more balanced editing. We knew who our winner was when we got there. We weren't like, wait, who's Erica? Like, where has she been? We had Marianne as just a fantastic winner. She was
Oh yeah.
almost like a kooky character, like when you first met her. Like you just really unassuming and you don't think that she's going to do much in the game. But then once she hits the merge, she starts kind of dominating socially and then pulls out some, pretty incredible moves that gets her in the perfect position to win. She takes out Omer, and then at the final three, she pulls out her idol that she didn't use, which is a perfect moment, which kind of convinced the jury to vote for her. And so she just did a lot of things right and made her a rootable character and a rootable winner. And I think that was great. Then we have Jonathan. We haven't had someone like Jonathan in a long time. I want to say it's probably since Joe, like as in challenge beast, but
Yeah.
also like he really kind of took over and just like in the new era, we still have to challenge people that have a legitimate shot at winning due to just how good they were at challenges. Kind of like Ozzy that we've been mentioning before, with the last few seasons we've talked about. But I love Jonathan a lot. I think he provides some great moments, like him just beast moding through. I think it was like that snake puzzle where they had to get the snake out of the cage, like the giant uh weighted snake or something, and he just like completely just rips it over and like absolutely dominates that. I don't even know if I don't remember, but Uh,
Yeah.
there's just several moments where he just completely carried his tribe to victory. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. What do you think about 42?
I really like 42 a lot. 42 obviously it builds upon 41 tremendously. I think they distribute the characterization a lot better amongst the entire cast. There's no one really like necessarily purpled. You know exactly why everyone's there, why Marianne wins, why Mike loses, why all this stuff I personally love. And to me, someone that doesn't get talked about during this is Omer. I'm just kidding. He gets talked about a lot during 42 because he's probably
We
the
need
best
him
player.
back. Yeah.
Well, obviously, I think Marianne's better, but I think number two is Omer. And he completely revolutionized a lot of the game, and we don't really think about. I think he realized like losing his vote at the merge is amazing because then he can be on everyone's good side, and he uses that perfectly. He straight up lies to Mike. He's a perfect villain for this new era, and I think the only downside is that he kind of messed up at the final six, not thinking Marianne would take her shot, and also that Lindsay made a pretty bad move not idling him because I actually do think Lindsay is a great player as well. She's very much grown on me. I wish she was edited more, but she is like that regular Final Five boot. And there's some great blind sides of the season. Obviously, Omer, where Marianne finally utilizes an extra vote offensively. You get that, which is great. You get the Drea blindside, which is another great moment of the season. I think Tori is a great character. I love her. I would love her back.
Tory respect
Um,
for sure.
yeah, massive Tori respect. She obviously kind of gets like voted out in a very like weird situation, which like isn't her fault whatsoever. And it's really none of their faults. It's just like how the nature of reality TV is. And I would love her back. And I think there's a lot of returning potential on this season. And I'm really satisfied by Marianne's edit. The only downside I would say is that she would got the winner's edit instead of the character edit, where I think she was even a crazier character than we saw. And they had to tone her down because she was the winner. So yeah, I definitely love the season. Would love a lot of them to return. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm with you there. There's just a lot of great characters. And it's so much improved upon 41 that really I think helps its overall view of like the fans' view, like looking back at the seasons, like looking back to the new era, you see 41, everyone didn't like hated 41 when it came out. And so 42, once they improved upon those errors, like people can see it in a much more positive light looking back. Obviously, those twists were still in the game, like it was just edited better. And I think that's really what hurts it a lot for me. And it's just not quite as entertaining as a couple other of the new era seasons that came out afterwards that we'll also
Mhm.
talk about soon. So,
No, yeah, I fully agree. Obviously, I like this season a lot. It was one of my best viewing experiences is watching this season. Just because you didn't really know who was winning. You could have made the argument for any one of the final six to have won the game, except Romeo, probably. But even Romeo was like a fine character. I like Romeo. And yeah, it was good. It really, I think, even pushed like I feel like 41, no one knew what was happening. And they didn't really know what was happening in 42, but they really built upon those mistakes. I think the hourglass twist being there is like bummer, but it didn't really play much of, like into the season because no one important was involved with that. And I think an underrated character is Roxroy. I love how crazy he is and how he just says everything wrong. And I'm like, we need more people like that on Survivor.
and he was just like a regular guy, like he was just not built
Yeah,
for reality TV
yeah,
at
he
all,
really,
you know?
yeah, he like was not supposed to be there.
And I think that just like made it better. Like, like we need more normal people to be casted on the show, like someone that you just meet every day in everyday life. And all the larger than life characters like Carolyn and Jam Jam and all of them are just like really entertaining to watch. Like you don't meet someone like that every day. Like like I don't personally
But you
know
need a
anyone like
Roxroy.
that. Yeah, yeah,
We
I
all
know.
know Roxroy.
We all know Roxroy, so um more Roxroy representation, I guess.
Shout out Roxroy if you're
Shout
out
out,
there. There's no
shout
way you
out.
have YouTube. There's no way.
There's absolutely no way. Um, so next up, number 18, we have Survivor 17, Survivor Gabon. Man, this season really has a cult following, I feel like, and I'm definitely one of the members. I like Survivor Gabon a lot. There's a lot of seasons on here that I just have high, and you don't that sh really shouldn't be high. But the reason we're talking about them today is because of me. I had Survivor Gabon all the way up at 12. Like people either love it or they hate it. I know you had it at 28, so that's more middle of the pack, but
Yeah,
I
I
like
would
I
agree.
like yeah, I like Gabon a lot. It's just hilarious. If you take it for what it is and you don't expect anything out of the players, if you expect them to do what's best for their games, you just get so many incredible moments. You get Marcus throwing the idol into the ocean. You have Sugar being stuck on Exile Island for weeks upon end, not being able to do anything, and convincing everyone that she doesn't have the idol somehow. And
Yeah, that was crazy.
pretty much plays everyone, but still doesn't know how to convince the jury to win. We have Susie almost winning $1 million at the end of the
Oh,
game
oh yeah.
because I like if that happened, I would have blown my mind. It's just no one was doing what was best for their game. It was just crazy all over. We have Randy Bailey, hilarious character. We have Corinne, just all these hilarious people that are just so fun to watch. I love when they do the tribe swap and they rank each other like based on like who's the best in the tribe. Like that those are some just hilarious like great moments. Like I keep using the word hilarious, but it's just so fun to watch. I'd watch it again with just popcorn in hand. Like there's just a comedic moment after comedic moment waiting to happen. And I think Bob is the perfect winner for this season because he's just a completely random winner. He does have a couple good moves in here. Like you can justify it a little bit. He's not a good winner overall, but it's just a heavily entertaining season for me.
Oh yeah. I'm obviously more middling during this. I appreciate the chaos and like all this stuff happening, but a part of me is kind of bummed that like Sugar didn't win specifically because I mean she did dominate this game and obviously she was going through a lot out there. And obviously like Corinne during Final Tribal, unbelievable that she was saying that. I was like, whoa. But I mean it's crazy, like it's entertaining at the same time. I mean, it's a great location. Them seeing elephants is so cool. That was surreal. We hardly get like the nature aspect anymore of Survivor, which is it's refreshing to see. And I think Bob does have like some good moments, specifically making the fake idol that like indirectly, directly like led to the split vote and all this stuff that did pave a way for him to win. Um, Obviously, one of my favorite moments of the whole season is when they're like right there on a challenge where they have like pull back and they're all just arguing. It is so funny. And it leads to one of my favorite, I don't think it's the same episode, but there's the meme where like Sugar and I think Susie or Corinne are just like, and then Marcus is just sitting there grinning. I love that meme. I like Gabon. It's definitely not my favorite season because I am someone who does value like the winner story and the season story correlating. But that's just me. I'm a big winners guy. So obviously Bob, you didn't get to see like any strategy because there was none. He didn't have a great final tribal, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and I get everyone's sentiment. I understand why people hate the season, and I understand why people love the season. So I'm personally one of the people that love the season, and so that's just kind of where that's kind of how it ends up that way. Someone else we need to talk about is Maddie. Like he was, you
Yeah.
know, a challenge away of winning the game. And he was a fun character. I think that would have made the season even better if he won because he was one of the only like normal people on the season that just was kind of there to play the game and have a good time. And he almost pulled it off, but unfortunately wasn't able to do so. Um,
Sadly,
was that?
sadly not.
Sadly not.
I
So
would I would have preferred him
yeah, I don't know if
personally.
yeah, for sure. I don't have much else to say about Gabon.
Yeah, me neither. It's a very it almost made Jeff quit. Yeah, it was One thing I want to point out is that Crystal is an Olympic athlete and she was terrible at challenges, and I think that is one of the funniest dichotomies in the history of Survivor.
Oh,
Her and
and then
Kenny's relationship is
yeah.
great.
And then Kenny was so great on this season. Like I was rooting for him the whole time. Like if Kenny would have won, like this would be an incredible season. Because Kenny's just like went from the bottom of the like at the very first episode, the girl that he had a crush on gets voted out immediately. And then he goes on in a hot streak and almost pulls it out and almost gets to the end. And he was like fifth place, I think. So he went pretty far. And I would love to see Kenny return on like a second chance season.
Bring
I
him
know
back.
probably not going to happen. Him talking about how he's like a professional gamer, like it's hilarious to watch. Um, I think he's a great character. And deserves another shot if he wants to come back. So that's all I have to say about Gabon. We can go to number 17, which is another classic Survivor season in Survivor Vanuatu. And
Oh,
let me tell you, I watched this season rather recently for the first time. I think probably a little over a year ago, maybe a year or two ago. Um, it was one of the last seasons I like finished on my rewatch or my watch through the all the seasons. Um, let me tell you, I'm glad I saved this one, to one of the last seasons to watch because it was a great one. And I had to get through some slog festive seasons like, Survivor One World and um many others that were just pretty lackluster. Um, and then going in and having Survivor Vanuatu to watch, I love this season. Let me tell you, I think Chris is a fantastic winner, and because he votes out Jeff's girlfriend, he gets a lot of hate from Jeff, so and there's no chance of him returning because of that. And
so sad.
yeah, it is very sad. You have the Fat Four Alliance from the old men's tribe and them just taking out all the younger fit guys and their tribe getting absolutely decimated by the women. But then Chris somehow survives and somehow in the presence of just an insurmountable wall of women on his way to try to win $1 million, he somehow plays them and gets all the way to the end and gets the money to win $1 million. One of the biggest underdog stories we've ever seen. There's it's surrounded by volcanoes. We have the first few episodes are terrible. I will say that they're very boring to watch. But once the merge hits, like it's just kind of all hell breaks loose and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely a very underrated season. It's so fun watching Chris navigate his way through the game. I think all the women are particularly great characters. Like, there's not a dud in the cast woman wise. Chris is obviously probably best case scenario for surviving, just because he's a great character in and of himself. He's a great player. I think he didn't necessarily do a lot at the final seven to cause the flip, but I think after that he works his magic so perfectly. He's such a good BSer, like probably the best BSer in the history of Survivor. You see it at Final Tribal, and even though people call him out, it doesn't matter because people believe him. And you get the likes of Julie, you get Scout, you get Eliza, you get Tina, you get all these or Twyla,
Amy,
sorry. Amy, great. All these players that are like genuinely great, great characters and great TV. It does take a while to get there. An underrated one is Rory. Bring back
yes,
Rory.
bring back Rory. I
Love
love that
Rory.
guy.
He is so funny. When him realizing that they're screwed, one of my best reactions in Survivor. He's like, "Dang." And I think it's such a good thing watching that this is the second iteration of Boys versus Girls, and you get to see Jenna do basically what Chris did, but reversed. And I think if you compare the seasons back to back, it's a lot of the same where you get to see Jenna have to survive all these boys and immunity her way to the end. You see Chris having to survive all these girls and have to immunity more or less his way to the end. I do think he would have been fine in a lot of cases, but it does still show how great of a season it is. I love the season. Obviously, the beginning is such a slogfest. It's hard. But they're on a volcano. There's an earthquake. It is crazy. It's a masterclass of early Survivor and a masterclass of in game, I should say, which is
Yeah,
my personal favorite part.
master. Yeah, masterclass of Final Tribal Council too. Like
Oh yeah.
He pulls out all the stops. He lies during final tribal, which a lot of people just stray against, like don't really do that. And he wasn't afraid to just BS his way through like the whole game and to win $1 million. And one of my favorite moments is when they have to bleep him out in the finale when he gets the vote
Yeah.
read for $1 million. And
Like
just
F yeah.
yeah, F yeah, or just screams and runs to his family. Um, and Jeff's just sitting there like shaking his head, like what is it? What just happened?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's so good.
yeah, it's a great moment. I'm glad the season exists. And it was really one of the best underdog stories. Really underrated season. I'd say it's like besides like Guatemala, it's probably like maybe second most forgotten season of Survivor. Like no one talks about the season at all.
That
Um,
was great.
but it's just good. I don't know. It's just good. I think you can still watch it and it still holds up to this day, even though
Mhm.
it's from like 2004 or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but
Yeah, something along.
something
I'm
around
sure.
then.
It's
But
old.
anyways,
It's old.
it's old. That's all we have to say. So moving on to the last season we'll be talking about today, which is number 16, Survivor, San Juan del Sur, Blood versus Water. What a tongue twist of a name of Survivor that is. Um, but we have the Return of the Blood versus Water twist with all newbies, which I think was a great idea, just to because how successful Blood versus Water the first one was, and they did it with returning players. I think it was cool how they did it now with just newbies. So you get to see the still like the family conflict. You don't know anything about these characters though going in. And then we also have one of the best winners of like post heroes versus villains, which is Natalie. I think like she's just a fantastic winner. She dominates the game kind of front to back. And I think the story is really cool about how her twin sister Nadia gets voted out first, and that kind of gives her the drive to like go on and win the game. I think the best case scenario for someone in these seasons, unfortunately, is having your loved one voted out because then you have a lot much reduced threat. You don't have a built-in, a pairing with somebody, and I think
Mhm.
that actually helped her game a lot. Um, Missy and Baylor didn't really help them at the end because they didn't really play well. They just relied on each other and didn't really have a lot of, space to do outside of that. And then there's just a lot of great characters. This is where Jeremy and Wentworth's first season are. And I'm so glad that they got to come back for a second chance. Like they didn't had their games cut short in this season. But the fans took a chance on them really bringing them back because we didn't really see much from them. But boy, did they show a lot, in second chance. That's something we won't talk about for a while either. And so I like the season a lot. There's a lot of fun moments. Some the reason I don't have it as high as you, I had it at 22 and you had it at 12. I think it's a little like boring at times. Sometimes the episodes are a little hard to get through, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of good moments, and I understand why a lot of people like this season as much as they do.
Yeah. I definitely love this season. One of my favorite seasons of all time. And I mean, first off, Natalie's story, she like everyone talks about it. It's probably the best like single like storyline of any winner, I would say, other than maybe a few. But like to me, it's probably the best one. And the fact you unbelievably innovated. Like this is like Tony level like innovation. First off, she pretends she doesn't get the right vote. She didn't like vote out a big player. She voted out like two like options, and she gained an ally in Keith Nail, R.I.P., one of the best characters in the history of Survivor. But also, she does that. She waits till the perfect time to take out John. She pulls off one of the most impressive moves at the final five and blindsided Baylor and basically guaranteeing her win. And it is just a masterclass in timing where she could have taken out John earlier, but she doesn't. And it is such a good story, especially with her sister being voted out first. And but even besides that, you have the Drew Christie vote, unbelievably funny, so good that all the girls come together to take him out. You have that. You have Keith Nail just this entire season, him not really understanding the game at all, but still having a great shot of winning because of his social game. You have Drew in the stepmother speech. You have just John playing a great game. You have Jeremy and Josh getting blindsided back to back. where most people going into this are like one of those two is winning, but that's not the case. There is a lot of boring stuff, especially pre-merge, I would say, but pre-merge also has some very high highs. And to me, the Final Five is one of my favorite votes in the history of Survivor. It just showed how dominant of a game Natalie is. I love that to this point, we hadn't really seen a female play like this, and it really did really set the precedent for future. Like she's a lot like D to me. Like they both played this more like aggressive game, but the only difference is Natalie really covered it more, and you can really show the parallels between the two. And I love both of them as a winner, and to me, it's one of the best seasons of Survivor.
Yeah, I totally understand that take. And as much as I'd like to agree with you, I don't. But I do think Natalie's a great winner. Yeah, I love that Final Five tribal, the moment where she's like, "Hey, like Jack, did you vote for who I told you to vote for?" And then she plays the idol afterwards. Like
Perfect.
that's just like cold-blooded move right there. And like it just kind of seals the deal, pretty much from then on to win the game. And so, uh, she's a great character. A lot of just great characters from this season overall. Just like Keith, yeah, Rip. Um, and then in addition to that, yeah, like you kind of touched on all the high points. I don't really have much else to say about this season. I like it. Um, but I think that's all we got for today. Did you like
Yep.
anything else to say before I send us home?
Hey, next week it's gonna be a banger. We're gonna get through a lot of seasons, a lot of the all the best seasons, and I'm really excited for it.
Me too. I'm pumped to talk about the top 15 seasons. It's probably gonna be a much longer episode. We might get close to like 2 hours of podcasting next week. Um, so pray for our voices
Yeah.
as we prepare for that. But I'm excited to talk about those. I'm thankful for everyone who stuck around and watched through the whole thing. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give the video a like and subscribe as it really just boosts our channel's ratings and helps, other Survivor fans find our channel. So if you enjoy it, please consider doing that. And comment what is your hot take based on the seasons that we talked about today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. Um, as we look forward to next week, talking about the last 15 seasons, and then we'll come up with some more Survivor content for you guys because we have full month until the Survivor premiere, a month from
Yep.
today, precisely. And so I'm excited to just lead up for Survivor 46, do all the preseason coverage. So without further ado, I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye. Peace.